What's going on, Vortex Nation? Now, we just got back from Crescent, Texas. We were at the Vortex Shooter Source 3-gun match. We had one of our very own, Jamison, shooting in his first ever 3-gun match. Not even a local match under his belt before heading off to this major match. Now, if you want to see some highlights from the match and Jamison's kind of venture into 3-gun, check out part 2 of this series. But if you're a budding 3-gun enthusiast yourself, or just, maybe signed up or thinking about signing up for your first match, check out this part because we talked to 5 pro shooters at the match about their list of top 5 things to consider when getting into the sport. Now, first up, we got Sean Burrows, who's talking about the all-important 180 that can keep us safe, but also keep us from getting disqualified in the match too. So check it out.
First thing I hear at every new shooter meeting, at every match I go to, is they explain the 180. Meaning 180 degrees. In a straight ahead bay style pistol match, it basically means you don't want to turn around past 180 degrees. But at a natural terrain match that we're at here, it's a bit more fluid and dynamic. You're moving down trails, and even in some stages, the range officer will describe what defines the 180 maybe in a certain position. I like to look at it as there's a magical laser beam going through the middle of your body, and the direction you're generally facing, you don't want to turn your gun past that. And it can be tricky. We just want to be safe. We want to have fun. It is a race as a game, but if it's your first match, it's just about learning how to play the game, getting that first match experience out of the way, really learning what you're doing. And the 180 is probably the biggest thing that a lot of people will lose perspective of.
What do you think is the most common spots that catch somebody accidentally breaking the 180? I don't think anybody's out here purposely breaking a 180, but how do you most often get caught?
2 most common. One is moving side to side with a long gun. It's easy to move in the direction of your dominant hand because the gun is naturally facing that way, especially when you're performing reloads. But when you move to your support side, so if I'm right-handed, moving from right to left, just making sure I'm keeping that gun downrange because it's very natural to want to turn, and then all of a sudden you're really breaking the 180. And then number 2, we have a stage here. It's a shoot house. You're going to be going into a lot of areas and then coming back out. So when you're going in, that's easy, but coming back out, you want to make sure the gun's pointed downrange as you're moving back. Just because you're moving back doesn't mean the gun needs to point the direction you're running.
The 180 rule, easy to understand in concept, but not always easy to do when you're actually in the heat of the moment in the match. So always make sure you're keeping that in mind. Now, next up, we got Dylan talking to us about stage planning.
I'm going to partner him up with somebody who's shot quite a bit before. Have them go through, if you're at a match like this where you can coach, have that person coach them. If you're getting past that first match, then stage planning comes into play. As you get a little more experience, then you're going to have to find out what works for you. For me, I can go through some stages and remember numbers. So 2 left, 4 right, 2 left, 3 right. Or I can go through and pick landmarks. So if I know at this tree, I'm going to stop, post, shoot everything on the right, go up to the dump bucket, shoot everything on the left. Those are the 2 easiest ways for me to plan a stage.
So what you're telling us is that you don't just go into 3-gun and just start running down a course, shooting targets left and right without even thinking about it. It's a big mental game.
I will actually go through and draw out maps. So I've got maps for the stages. As you go through on each individual stage, I will map out where the targets are, how many for each area, when I want to load. And I'm trying to remember that stage plan either based upon the number of targets or the landmarks I need to hit and not miss something and catch a big penalty.
So if you want to be physically fast like these pros out here, you got to be mentally fast, and you can't do that unless you prepare. Stage planning, folks, it's very important. Now, next up, we got Josh talking about putting the right rounds on the right targets. This is what we got.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. So really common in 3-gun matches, a lot of heavy shotgun stages, and it's really common for us to have mixed loads. And mixed loads meaning targets require sometimes bird, buckshot, and slugs all in one stage. So it's really important for new shooters to remember and to understand to put the right rounds on the right targets, because they can often result in a stage DQ or a match DQ, and can also actually be dangerous. So as shooters kind of step into that at first, the right thing to do is just to take the time and just have a really solid plan in place as they step into those types of stages.
So put your slugs on the slug targets, your rifle on the rifle targets, and your pistol on the pistol targets. You get the picture. Then next up, we talked to Ryan about the kind of strange thing we do in 3-gun, which is dumping your rifle when you're done shooting it. And let's see what Ryan had to say about that.
All right, guys, sometimes we come to this sport, something we do differently here is we actually take a loaded gun and put it in a barrel. something that's new to new shooters a lot of times when they start here. It's real important. I've never seen someone say, man, I'd have won that stage if I'd have grounded that gun a lot faster. So it's something to really pay close attention to. Before that gun leaves your hand, make sure the safety's on, or make sure it's unloaded depending on your course of fire and how you're abandoning the weapon.
Specific spot that you got to put it in. They have dump barrels, right? And you want to make sure you don't put it outside of the dump barrel.
Some sports or some rule sets don't allow for 2 guns to go in 1 barrel, so you might have 2 barrels there. Make sure it's in the proper place, or sometimes a pistol is to go into a barrel and not on top of a table. I see that a lot. Guys will take their loaded pistol, put it on a table where it should have gone into a barrel. So dumping your firearm in the proper place, time, and position is extremely important, not only for safety reasons, of course, but it could be another one of those things that might get you disqualified if you do it wrong in the wrong place and time. Now, next up, we got Jake Latola, who's going to tell us a little bit about getting your rifles dope. He'll explain what dope is, but just know you're going to want to get it before you head to the match. Otherwise, those rifle sections aren't going to be very fun for you. So let's see what we got.
This is a rifleman's match. I mean, you've got to know your dope. You've got to understand your dope. And, you know, for a lot of people, especially newer shooters, dope, what is that? What does that even mean? Data on previous engagements. You've got to do a little bit of homework before you get to the match. You can't just show up on match day expecting to be able to shoot targets at 300, 400, 700 yards if you don't know where your rifle's hitting out at those ranges. So before you come to the match, you should really take some time, borrow a chronograph from a friend or at the range you're at. Chronograph is something that you use to measure the velocity of the bullet. When you're checking your zero, also go out and extend that range and try to confirm the holds that you have on your rifle scope reticle. You need to iterate it a little bit. You need to get that data before you show up to the big game. I mean, you got to make, you know, split-second decisions to try to remember your hold, and then get a steady hold on those targets anywhere from, you know, 500-600 yards.
So there you have it, folks. 5 pro tips that you should consider when you're going into one of your first 3-gun matches. Now, if we could add a 6th tip to this list, it would be just sign up for a match in general. Now, as you see when we go over to part 2, Jamison, who had little to no experience at all before entering this fairly major match, made it all the way through the match, had a ton of fun doing it, and he improved dramatically from start to finish too. So check out part 2, and hopefully next year maybe we'll see you out in Crescent, Texas at the Vortex Shooter Stars 3-gun match, and we'll have a ton of fun. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Check out part 2.